When factoring a sum and difference of cubes, it's really a matter of just memorizing the pattern for factorization. When you factor them, you end up with a binomial and a trinomial of a specific formula, and it all comes down to taking the cube root of the first and second term. Here's the rule for the sum of two cubes. What you do is you take the cube root of both the first and second term. And then what happens is when it's factored out, it ends up being a binomial of the sum of these two cube roots. And then you take the first term and square it, the cube root of the first term and square it, multiply the cube root of the first and second term and subtract that from the first one, and then you square the last term. So remember, this is always positive. So whenever you're looking at the binomial, so remember you always have a binomial and trinomial. This sign always matches the sign, whether it's a sum or a difference. And then this sign is always different. The second sign is always different. This sign is always positive. So all you need to know how to do is take the cube root of these two terms. But remember that it's very important to take out the greatest common factor first. So let's try some examples. Remembering that our formula is, if we have the sum of two cubes, that ends up being, we take the cube root of A and add it to the cube root of B cubed, and multiply it by the square of the first term minus the product of the first two plus the square of the last term. Okay, so first thing, what I always do when I'm looking at these is I take the cube root of each one of these, and these end up being my A and B. So the cube root of x cubed is x, and that's your A. All right, and the cube root of 27 is 3, and that's your B. So following the formula, it's A plus B, so that's going to be x plus 3. Then I square whatever my A is, and then I subtract the product of these two numbers, so that's 3x, and then I square my B. So it does take some time to kind of get it down, but it's definitely something that you're going to run into a lot. Okay, so the next one is a little bit more complicated, but not too bad. So I took the cube root of m cubed, so the cube root of m cubed is just m, that's my A, and then I'm going to take a cube root of 216n cubed. That is going to be 6n. So following the pattern, I do m plus 6n. Remember, this one always matches the sign in the original binomial. Then I square the first term, m squared, and then I subtract m times 6n. So it's going to be 6mn. I always put the m first because in standard form we want to go ahead and put it in alphabetical order. And then I square the last term, and that one's always positive. So that's 36n squared. Don't forget to square the variable as well. Okay? Now when we're doing a difference of cubes, we just did a sum of two cubes. Now we're going to do a difference of two cubes. Now, as you notice, it follows the same format. The first binomial has the same sign as the original one, and then you change the sign in the first sign is always different in the trinomial, and then this one's always positive. Okay? So you're doing the same thing. If you can take the cube root of something, you're going to be fine. So this one's very simple. So the cube root of x cubed is just x, and the cube root of 1 is just 1. Now the thing is right here is to always remember that you can't take it, don't worry about the signs, you need to follow the pattern. Okay, so remember, since this is a minus, this is going to be x minus 1. Then my first term is this squared, so x squared. And then this is going to be the opposite of this term right here. So that's going to be plus x, or 1x. I don't have to do that. So, and then I always add the last term, which is the square of that, and that's 1. Now for this one, I wanted to go ahead and first factor out a greatest common factor. So remember, this is 2 times x cubed minus 27y cubed. All right. I always like to remember that. Now I'm going to bring that 2 back in at the very end, but let's take the cube root of x cubed is just x, and the cube root of 27y cubed is 3y. So remember, take the cube root of the number and the variable, and remember everything has to be a perfect cube. So my first binomial is, I'm going to put the 2 on the outside, which is this guy right here. And I'm going to do x minus 3y. All right. Square the first term, which is x squared. Then add the product of these two terms. So this is going to be 3xy. And in standard form, it's always best to put it in alphabetical order. And then square, add the square of the last term, which is 9y squared. And then you're done. Okay? Hopefully this is a brief synopsis of the pattern. You really just need to keep practicing to make sure you get it down.